Hey, Breaking Points. This is Marshall Kosloff. You probably know me from my weekly Breaking Points videos, but I'm also a co-host of a podcast with Saagar. It's called The Realignment. It's a really great show. We do interviews, and we've also introduced doing weekly discussion episodes. So Saagar and I will talk and debate about the biggest issues of the day. We just released a new episode yesterday, which featured a whole discussion on the student debt crisis and what we should or shouldn't do about it. Here is an excerpt. If you enjoy the show, if you like YouTube video discussions, if you like podcasts, definitely check out our stuff after the episode. You can find the links right below you. Hope you like this clip.
For the last big topic I want to hit, because there's one that really resonated with me, I want to talk about Biden's student loan issue, because it perfectly is downstream from the divides within Twitter and social media, and frankly, the class one we were talking about, class and education one we were just talking about. So what's happened here is that you have had a literal pause on federal student loan payments since the coronavirus hit. This started by a Trump admin executive order. Then when the CARES Act passed a month into COVID, it was then instituted. The Biden administration has consistently pushed back the date by which student loan payments have to resume. And another key thing too, it's not merely that the student loan payments are being paid, it's that actually you literally have a pause on interest. So the lack of payment isn't costing anyone anything. And Joe Biden, I think to his credit, because Joe Biden is actually on a good day, I think closer to whatever the centrist consensus of the country is, has always been reluctant to go all in on student debt forgiveness. However, as his party and his presidency continues to really struggle with the ability to attract and enthuse and make young voters enthusiastic, you're actually seeing he openly said to Democratic politicians this week that he and his administration are looking into a way to forgive some, if not all, of the federal student loan debt. So, Saagar, I know you're going to have a take on this. I'd love to hear your reaction to this entire issue.
Yeah, I mean, well, what do you mean exactly? Which
yeah,
way do
let
you
me
want me to start?
actually, yeah, well, let me do one thing too, which is this is my center left side. It's really important to note that, Saagar, you and I had not 1 cent of student debt. So like that it's actually it's important that we check our privilege, but it actually is, because nothing is more boomer con than saying, well, when I was a kid, I worked really hard during my summer, so why are they bitching
student
about
debt
stuff?
ruins lives, and if you don't know that, you're an idiot.
I can't imagine, your and my entire history is we weren't happy with what we were doing. We
took a gamble
on trains, moved to DC and interned for our first year. That I do not know how you do that the way we did it.
Not possible.
If you have student debt or don't have family support. So I think people who hold, I think the position that you and I directionally hold, are way too insensitive when it comes to that. So here's basically what I'm asking you. How should the Biden administration approach this challenge of the loan payments being stopped and just continually doing it, moving back and back and back? What do you think?
I don't know. They're in a real pickle. Here's the thing. I just think that canceling student debt without dealing with the structural university system is bullshit, and is rightfully going to be dramatically politically unpopular. And it is going to be, here's the other, okay, let's start again with the coalitions. And it like you just said, you know that there are more working class young people in this country who didn't go to college than who did go to college. So now you're bailing out your own voters. Let's be very specific about who exactly these people are. You're not dealing with the universities, another independent power base of your support, who wrongfully bankrupted many of these people and overcharged them. You're not dealing with the funding structure for any of this, and you're not making it an appeal to all Americans. So I've said this before. I do not support any debt cancellation for student debt unless it is dealt with structural reforms in the university system. And I think it's also, to be clear, I cannot support that without an equal and opportunity wipeout of debt for a commiserate number of young people on either the credit card side, the auto side, or some other one. Because I believe in universal policies. So I think that a student debt is holding down a lot of young people. But like I said, I think something 55, maybe 60% of young people in this country did not go to college. But they have a lot of debt too, by the way. They have auto loans.
And here's the thing too.
They pay a lot of taxes too.
This is what's actually important to understand structurally This isn't just like you wipe stuff off the balance sheet.
Yeah.
This isn't like fake paper money. Like, this is real money. So if this debt is forgiven, like, it's actually fascinating. You know this, the New York Times did a great episode on this. Like, shout out to the Daily for being good at what the Times is actually good at, which is straightforward. It's like a CNN, right? When they just do reporting, they're very good at it. The government's paying like $5 billion a month in missed interest since 2020. That's a lot of money that people are operationally paying for. So I think you just hit something which is very important that I want listeners to draw out on, because we're going to get a lot of pushback, but also a lot of folks write in whenever we talk about this issue. They say they didn't know this. I hate when people who hold our positions, aka work in media and shape discourse, just generically refer to the student debt crisis like as a crisis. Because for me, right. I don't actually. So here's the thing. Maybe it's possible it's a crisis, but from what I can tell, what's really happening here is there are specific problems and interests that affect people who work, let's say, in media. So once again, media, this is not a lucrative job. Look, dude, you and I come from families who have PhDs. Mm-hmm. Most people we know who work in media are not coming from, super tough. No, I don't want to even, that's unfair to say. I'm not going to overstate that, but like, the most privileged people I know.
The vast majority of people in media are people who come from privileged backgrounds. That's just objectively true.
And a result of that is that media jobs tend to be very, very, very low paying. So what happens there is you have a lot of people who are making 35, 45K, let's say like working for Vox or working at a second, third tier publication, who actually don't come from family money or have debt. For them, they pay crazy amounts of money to go to school. They're making very little money in professions that are frankly structured around upper middle class people. So then they're writing headlines like student debt crisis. But you know what they don't really have? They don't have lots of credit card debt. They don't have lots of auto debt. They probably live in a big coastal city where they don't even drive in the first place. They don't have a mortgage, so there's no mortgage debt. It's true that college debt has exceeded other forms of debt for the first time, but not by much. Like, we're still talking trillions and trillions of dollars. So the thing that I'm so obsessed with, like, Saagar, you're saying your goal is universal policies. My goal is, I want consensus-based policies, not merely narrative-driven ones. So I want us as a society to come to the conclusion, look, here is the hierarchy of debt. We think that actually forgiving 10K of credit card debt from everyone is a higher priority than forgiving 10K of student loan debt. Maybe it goes differently, but I think the key thing, and this is what we're lacking at a political class issue, is that a talented political class wouldn't just recite generic narratives that they hear in the media, or if it make their base excited. They would see the opportunity, as people get more and more tired of the bases on the far left and the far right, to say, like, wait, guys, like, what do you actually think? Like, actually, okay, question for the audience, write in. realignmentpod@gmail.com, or come on the Substack. What is like the top most important level of debt that needs to be addressed from a fairness perspective? Let's just posit we are going to do something as a society, as a government level. Like, what is your highest priority? But yeah, Saagar, go on.
I think it's probably credit card debt. That's probably the one that people in this country have a lot of debt, man. Yeah. But the other thing, I don't know, it's just so hard because look, to be honest, in a lot of these environments too, right now, doing these policies in a non-inflationary way is just so difficult. Because
explain what you mean by that.
If you forgive a bunch of student loan debt, I mean, you're going to see an explosion of spending kind of by the elite class. And look, I'm not like a deficit boomer, okay? But like, that is basic economics. So like, what I would say, when gets to the multifaceted nature of this problem, is that any sort of universal debt cancellation would also have to be paired with attacking the core supply side problems in inflation, so that we could also meet the commensurate demand spike that's going to happen as a result of people having more money to spend, which isn't going notably to the card and debt services. But I just think in general, it's a stupid policy. And look, a lot of people who are going to hold student debt may be angry when they're listening to this. Probably actually podcast listeners are disproportionately more likely to have a college degree. So sorry, everyone. But you guys got to think about it in the context of good politics. Like, do you really, really, really want both boomers who genuinely are against student debt cancellation and also working class young people who don't have any student debt, who pay taxes and who are getting destroyed by inflation right now to be united in the fact that this was an unfair bailout. Because also, here's the other one. The Biden debt cancellation is on shaky legal ground. It's almost certainly going to get challenged all the way up to the Supreme Court. There's already a conservative Supreme Court, right? So we don't really know that this would even pass muster unless it's an act of Congress. And so something I really learned in the Trump years was that a shitty version of an executive action could actually neuter the possibility of something passing in the legislature as a result of turning the populace against it, if that makes sense.
No, that perfectly explains the 2017 immigration executive order story. So, we're in our last 2 minutes here, but I'll sum up my position on this, which is, look, the Biden problem is as follows. Things are bad with young people. The headline they do not want at a political sympathy level is Biden resumes payment. Forgive 10K. Universally, just say basically, look,
but even 10K, Marshall, it's not fair. It's just not fair. You can't give some people $10,000.
I'm giving, but they're already giving it though. So this is the thing, Saagar.
Yeah, fair.
They've already paused the interest payments, which once again is $5 billion. It's so much money. So just say, look, guys, there's a social contract. You took on the debt. We're going to work to fix this system. We're going to resume payments, but in recognition of how crazy the situation is, we're going to forgive 10K in debt. I also think the people who I want student debt forgiveness for, I totally just believe this, people who didn't graduate from college. So the people who are most screwed under the current system are not obviously people who got a JD law degree and have 200K in debt. It's a person who went to a mediocre third tier private or state university, took out way too much debt, and is working a job and then once again, didn't graduate and is now working a job that they could have gotten without even going to college in the first place. We should basically take that old timey, women and children into the lifeboats first idea and apply it to this situation. If we can agree there's this massive problem and there's this huge percentage of people in our generation who are totally screwed, we have to start with people that are actually screwed. And someone who's actually screwed right now is someone who went to college for 5 years, took out loans they shouldn't have taken out, are not benefiting from that degree, and are terrified of the loan payments with the interest resuming. They have to be targeted first. And talk about so much of a simpler... Oh, and then to your point, Saagar, you then attack it with a universalist, this is why the system's going to be better bit. We're in our last minute, so just give your closing take. And it's a frustrating topic.
It's very frustrating because it's just been boiled down to something which is just not real, like you said. And I just think a lot of it is just the freak out of a professional managerial class who want to turn themselves into class victims. Here's the thing too, you were talking about debt. $10,000 takes care of the most onerous debt for a lot of people. The people who care the most about 10 to 60K or 100K, they all have master's degrees. So now we're talking about bailing out the most elite of the elite. And I don't mean that in terms of money. I mean in terms of cultural cachet. And by the way, I'm there with you. I have a master's degree. I'm not, I'm a member of this class. I'm just saying though, that politically, that's a nightmare situation. You should always think about policy, not just for yourself, but in the context of how it's going to affect everybody. And also, even if you do want that policy selfishly, what's the best way to make it politically sustainable? Because I can guarantee you the most unpopular president of my lifetime making this happen is not good for you.
And last thing here, because I want to bring up your universalist point. The other problem that I'm noticing here is that there is very little articulation from anybody in the Biden team. I'm not talking to Democratic socialists who've been serious with this issue of why doing this forgiveness makes America a better place. Think of the GI Bill. The GI Bill, it's passed during World War II. It's a generation of white people, right? Let's acknowledge the fact that it was not equitable as many New Deal programs were not. But the idea was, hey, as a society, if we help veterans get educated, we will all benefit. And the fact that Biden is letting it all be said that this is being done to win an election is a disaster for the policy. And like you said, Saagar, is not what you want to see.